when we talk about psychological theories, it is an umbrella term. So we have to narrow down so that I can contribute something in this 50 minutes. So in this session, I'm going to deal with psychoanalytic criticism, trauma studies, and memory studies, where we employ psychological theories very often, and also some psychotherapies that is only related to literature. There are many psychotherapies, not all the therapy we use in literature. So whatever therapy we are using in literature, that I am going to share in this session. So the first one is psychoanalytic criticism. The very moment we study about psychological theory, we come across psychoanalytic theory or psychoanalytic criticism. So what is psychoanalytic criticism? So why we have to employ psychoanalysis in literature? Have you ever think in this way? So why we have to employ psychoanalysis? Why we have to employ psychological theories in literature? So psychoanalysis is a study of unconscious mind, that we all know. Why we have to study unconscious mind in literature? So why we have to understand unconscious mind? What is the importance of understanding unconscious mind in literature? Uh, so it is important to understand unconscious mind in order to understand the conscious mind of any personality. So we are studying psychoanalysis in order to understand the unconscious mind, so that we can understand the personality of certain people, the personality of the society. So that is why the psychoanalysis plays a major role in literature. We are not only understanding the literary figures, but here we also understand the author himself, because sometimes the unconscious self finds its expression through literature, through art, through music. So that is why every art form is directly related to the creator. So here they are just not only exhibiting their skill, but they also, whether knowingly unknowingly, they are just exhibiting their unconscious mind. So unconscious mind always finds its expression in literature, other art form, that we have to understand. Sigmund Freud, the moment we talk about psychoanalysis, it is all started with Sigmund Freud. He was regarded as father of psychoanalysis. His theory is called as psychoanalytic theory. His therapy is called as psychoanalysis. What is psychoanalysis? As I told earlier, psychoanalysis is a study of unconscious mind. Why we are studying unconscious mind? In order to know conscious mind, in order to know the human personality very clearly. So that is why we are studying psychoanalysis. We are also incorporating the same theory of psychoanalysis in literature. So in this we can, just a second. So in this we can clearly understand human character. So that is related to complex genetic environment forces. So according to Freud, the human unconscious is always related to complex genetic and environment forces. The strongest always exist in unconscious mind. For example, the desires, memories, thoughts that we afraid of sharing to anyone, always it has in unconscious mind. Again, sometimes it reflected in human behavior as well. So in the book The Interpretation of Dreams, he clearly stated about the functions of unconscious mind, how dreams are the roads to unconscious mind. So he just stated dreams as unfulfilled wish of human. But later theorists denied the fact that dreams are not just unfulfilled wish. This is just an extended form of mental activity. So throughout we are going to see this kind of changes. So whenever we are studying psychoanalysis, we have to keep one thing in mind: these theories are not static. Time to time it is evolved, uh, just like any other theories. It is not just with Sigmund Freud. Many other theorists uh, are stating theories that is different from Sigmund Freud. That is why we can see huge difference from early theories and recent psycho theories. Some people agree with Sigmund Freud, whereas some theorists reinterpreted Sigmund Freud's theories. So that is why these psychoanalytic theories are not static at all. It is evolved over the time. It is evolving even now. So that is the beauty of mind actually. Even now, the theorists are trying to decode what is in our unconscious mind. So another important theorist who is the contemporary of Sigmund Freud is Carl Jung. He was a Swiss psychoanalyst. As I told, he was a contemporary. Then he became the friend of Sigmund Freud. But later, he broke away from Sigmund Freud's school because he didn't accept the theory of Oedipus complex. So Freud proposed Oedipus complex theory. Definitely, Carl Jung had difference of opinion with Oedipus complex. Later, he broke away from the school of Freud. He proposed two main psychoanalytic concepts. One is collective unconscious, another one is archetypes. This collective unconscious, whereas Freud just proposed unconscious, to the extent Jung proposed collective unconscious. Unconscious is not just personal, sometimes it is related to collective unconscious. For example, in literature, we can clearly give example about Emperor Jones. So he is the best example of this collective unconscious. So even though he is not directly involved with slavery, he has that collective unconscious of his own community. So that is called collective unconscious. Sometimes it is not that we have personal unconscious, we also have the collective unconscious of the society in our mind, that we never aware, that we are not aware that this collective unconscious we possess. So it is usually we unaware about this collective unconscious. So the second, the famous Jungian concept is archetypes. So what is archetype? We all are familiar with this kind of archetypes. We can say this archetype is the model behavior. Um, this archetype is the model behavior of anything. Even in Indian knowledge system, we have archetypes, right? For example, uh, we just have some model figures. We want to be like those figures. We want to have the personality like that figures. That is called archetypal figures. For example, in Indian knowledge system, people usually quote Rama, Karna, Sita as archetypal figures, right? Because we want to possess same values in our life, so we want to be the same personality in our life. So these are the archetypes, these are the model behavior the human want to become. So he again proposed this archetypal theory. He contributed to archetypal criticism. So he clearly understand that throughout literature we can find many archetypal models. So especially in mythology, these archetypal expressions are found in mythology. So it can be either personal or it can be collective or social. For example, in the case of personal archetype, our dreams, it is always trying to say something. For example, unlike Freud, he has different interpretation about dream. Whereas Freud thought that dreams are road to unconscious. These are unfulfilled wish we have in the form of dreams. But whereas Young clearly stated that dreams are not different from our mental activity. It is same as our mental activity. Sometimes we can clearly understand unconscious purpose through dream. So this is why he completely has different thought about psychoanalytic theories compared to Freud. Whereas Freud is more famous, but whereas Carl Jung, he has Eastern ideologies. That is why he was not quite popular in Western culture or Western school. He proposed hundreds of archetypes: eternal youth, wise old man, anima, animus. So all these he proposed as archetypes. So there are four basic human archetypes. Those are hero, shadow, anima, and animus. Whereas his hero archetype, we all know Rama is the hero archetype. Whereas Mahabharata, Arjuna is the hero archetype, Krishna is the hero archetype. Whereas shadow, Ravana is the shadow archetype. So from this, we can clearly understand the personality of human behavior. So that is the main reason. So for example, can you give any archetypal figure of hero archetype and shadow archetype? Even in this slide, I have mentioned Harry Potter. Harry Potter is the best example of hero archetype. He has good personality. He has good intention. Whereas shadow archetype, obviously, Voldemort is a shadow archetype, that he possesses all the evil characteristics, right? In his unconscious mind, he has some traumatic experience in childhood that reflected in his behavior. These are example for shadow archetype. So here at another two archetypes, that is anima and animus. These two archetypes are visible throughout the human society. So what is anima and animus? Have you heard about these terms earlier? So anima is the feminine side of male, whereas animus is the masculine side of females respectively. So that is why we call human as androgynous. Every male possesses some characteristics of female, especially for male. Male always possesses some characteristics of mother. So that is the argument of Young. He also talks about personality types. Uh, the personality types obviously has two categories. One is introvert, another one is extrovert. Nowadays, we are familiar with these terms, introvert and extrovert. Even in social media, we are using this kind of terms very often. But we have to clearly understand why we are using these terms. Because we can clearly understand the personality of the people. So whether he is an introvert or extrovert, so from that we can understand the personality. So he introduced that these two categories has 8 personality types based on our rational function and irrational functions. For example, based on our thinking, feeling, intuition, sensation, our personality change. Whether we are introvert or we are extrovert, it depends upon our thinking, feeling, intuition, sensation. Based on that, we can decide which personality type we fit into. So this is the Young's model of collective unconscious. According to him, collective unconscious always finds its expression in literature. So this is the model of Young's collective unconscious: ego, personal unconscious, and collective unconscious. Whereas in Freud theory, we can only see ego and personal unconscious. Ego is self, what we see in reality, whereas personal unconscious, what we hold in our memory, what we hold in our desire, so what we hold in our unconscious mind. So that is personal unconscious. To the extent, Young also believe that every human also has collective unconscious. So this is the difference. Iceberg model. The first one is Freud's iceberg model. Another one is uh, Young's iceberg model. Whereas in Freud's iceberg model, he just analyzed about unconscious mind. That is very personal. Whereas Young's unconscious, collective unconscious, it has something to do with the society, external factors as well. Because our characteristics are not formed only based on ourselves. It has some external relationship with the society. So that is Young's model. So he has given completely new perspective to the psychoanalytic perspective. So the next important psychoanalytic theory is object relations theory. This is proposed by Melanie Klein. Uh, we have very few women psychoanalyst theorists. In that list, Melanie Klein was one such famous theorist. Especially, she studied psychoanalysis. Many psychoanalyst theorists believe that we need not do a psychoanalysis on children unless they have some mental illness. But whereas she strongly believed that we have to do psychoanalysis on children because their later behavior is always depend on their childhood circumstances. So we have to do some psychoanalysis on children. So she believed that here subject is the child. Subject always learn or form its identity through object. Object can be anything. Even the mother is the object. Parents are the object. The community is the object. So the child always forms its identity based on the object. So actually, in a way, that is true. But to the extent, she is also telling that subject and object both have to maintain harmonious relationship. That Lacan clearly objected because that harmonious relationship never exists. It is not always very smooth between subject and object. So maybe this object relation theory is not applicable for everyone because it has its limitation, because such harmony never exists. In another important psychoanalyst theorist is Mary Bonaparte. She was a princess. She was the member of Freudian school. She supported the theories of Freud. Even she was the contemporary of Freud. She wrote the ambitious book called The Life and Works of Edgar Allan Poe. Especially, most importantly, the foreword was written by Freud himself. So again, this is another psychoanalytic interpretation of Mary Bonaparte, which she compares her childhood trauma with Edgar Allan Poe's childhood trauma, because she believed that this childhood uh, trauma in the form of repression later is exhibited through our behaviors. So that we can find in this book, The Life and Works of Edgar Allan Poe. So another famous revolutionary psychoanalyst is Jacques Lacan. Uh, many theorists never accepted his view of psychoanalysis, but still he was quite famous compared to anyone in the field. Here, he strongly believed that self, that is our behavior, is formed relation to other. For example, my identity or myself is not what I am. So what it is also depends on how you behave with me, how the external factors contributed to my behavior. So that is what Jack argued through this theory. So he strongly, as a structuralist, he strongly believed that psychoanalysis is connected to language studies. The psychoanalysis, the unconscious mind is structured just like the language. It has some structure. We have to understand this structure in order to understand the unconscious mind. He revised Freud's psychoanalytic theory, because according to Freud, what is psychoanalytic, what is unconscious mind? It is formed in our memory. It is related to self. But whereas according to Lacan, it is not just related to self, it is also related to the external factors. Because of his revolutionary thought, even he was expelled from the school of psychoanalytic community. Many times he was asked to stop his lecture because many people uh, didn't accept his theory of psychoanalysis. But later, uh, the society accepted his theories. Now he was famous, quite famous in the field. We can't ignore Jack Lacan in psychoanalysis. So he also introduced this psychic structure. There are three psychic structure. In order to understand our unconscious mind, we have to understand these three psychic structure, and these three psychic structure are interconnected with each other. One is first one is real, second one is imaginary, third one is symbolic. I'll explain uh, what it is, what is real, what is imaginary, what is symbolic. So this is the first image where the child seeing the reflection of himself, trying to understand. Whereas in the first state, real, the child never understand what is what, who is who. In the only in the second stage, that is imaginary state, the child tries to forms its identity. Sometimes the identity may be true or not true. Somehow it try to understand things. Okay, the image in the reflection is somebody else or me. So where in this stage the child tries to form its own identity. So even in the second image, so it is the imaginary state where we try to imagine ourselves, we try to form our identity in relation to other. We imagine, okay, this is our identity, I am a superman, I am a superwoman. So we form our identity based on the external object. So this is imaginary. Whereas this third image, we can say it is a symbolic stage of a child, where the child clearly understand, okay, this is what me, this is what I am going to become, this is what I behave. So they have some structured pattern of uh, thought process, structured pattern of identity, that is called symbolic. But most of the time, even the grown up are involved in this imaginary state. So it is not necessary, because we always want to be someone else, right? We always want to become like superhero, or we always want to behave like somebody else. So many psychiatrists believe that even the grown-ups are involved in this second state, imaginary state. So this is a famous photograph. Lacan himself took this photograph right after his lecture about mirror stage. So this is the mirror stage where the child tries to form its own identity. Sometimes the child may think that mother is also uh, in his identity. He is from mother, or the mother is part of the child. The child is trying to form its own identity, try to understand things. So that is the stage, the mirror stage. So in this picture we can see Lacan's wife and the child. So another important aspect in Jack Lacan's interpretation of unconscious mind is we can clearly understand from the Purloin letter. This is a this literary work is by Edgar Allan Poe, where he clearly stated the formation of identity, how the external factor contributed to the uh, internal state of mind, unconscious mind. So here in this literary work, letter is the signifier. So even though it doesn't have any relation with the people life, but it has the capacity to change the course of life. So here the letter is a signifier in the story. Based on that, it has the capacity to change the life of the people. So it is the important work if you want to understand about Jacques Lacan's interpretation. You can have a look at the story. And the next psychoanalyst theorists are Deleuze and Guattari. So they proposed schizoanalysis. Actually, this psychoanalyst theory was not quite popular, but if you are employing social approach in your literary work, you can definitely have a look at this schizoanalysis. Again, it re-evaluates psychoanalysis. They didn't accept the Freudian concepts, but whereas they re-evaluate psychoanalysis. We can say it is a combination of both psychoanalytical and Marxist approach. So because where we try to have thought against authority or control, authoritarian power. So it clearly aims at social change towards better society. So whenever you are employing social approach in your literature, definitely you can correlate this schizoanalysis with that literary figure. So next, apart from psychoanalytic theory, this theory is also very important. Humanistic psychology. This humanistic psychology is quite popular in 20th century. Actually, it is the result or reaction of two other theories. One is Freud's psychoanalytic theory, another one is Skinner's behaviorism. Whereas in Freud's psychoanalytic theory, what he argued, we want to understand the unconscious mind so that we can understand the conscious mind. Whereas in behaviorism, uh, every human behavior is a conditioning process that produce behavior. Yes, whatever we endure in our childhood, we can see the reaction later. It contributed to the behavior of the people. So that is Skinner's behaviorism, right? Uh, so it is reaction to these two theories, whereas Maslow and Roger, they didn't accept these two theories because um, it is true that the initial experience has direct involvement in behavior, but it is not always true that people always hold on to the childhood experience. We tend to learn, we tend to unlearn. So in that course, we have lot of experience, we change our behavior in the course of life. So this is the holistic view of any individual. For example, it talks about reaching one's potential. So we commit mistake, then we learn from that mistake. It is not always related to behavior. We change our behavior according to our experience, what we learn from that experience. So this is called self-actualization. So here it is quite different from psychoanalytic theory, especially Freud's psychoanalytic theory. So another important theory is Gestalt theory. It has some relevance to humanistic psychology. Even Gestalt believe that the whole is more than sum of its part. For example, you are listening to this lecture. This listening to the lecture is just the part, not the whole picture. So what is the whole picture? You are not only listening to this lecture, you will be listening to many other lecture. You form the knowledge over psychoanalysis. So that is the desired outcome, right? So that is the whole. The whole is more than the sum of its part. So in simple words, it is not just one particular experience of human. It is about the continuous experience of human decides or has direct implication on human behavior. That is called Gestalt theme. Even he believed that dreams are some existential message. Unlike Freud, he believed that dreams are existential messages. Yes, okay. Let us come out of psychoanalytic theory, humanistic approach. Here I am going to tell some psychotherapies that we use in literature. The first famous logotherapy. One is logotherapy. You just let me know in the chat box whether you come across this term, logotherapy. Who coined this term, logotherapy? So, what is the purpose of this logotherapy? Can you please share your views on logotherapy? Kindly apply some prior knowledge about logotherapy. I want some interaction between, because okay, so this logotherapy is called existential psychotherapy. Uh, Austrian German psychiatrist Viktor Franklin employed this therapy, logotherapy, in his book Man's Search for Meaning. He himself was a Holocaust survivor. He was detained in Auschwitz concentration camp. During that time, uh, he used his own theories in order to cope up with the situation. So at that time, he found these theories are very useful to cope up with what they are going on, because it was during Holocaust. He was already detained in the concentration camp. He was not sure whether he would come alive or not. So during that extremely difficult time, he has to use some coping mechanism. So he used this logotherapy as a coping mechanism. So it ensures primary motivational force of any individual is to find meaning in life. Even at the difficult situation of time, we have to find some meaning in life, either by creating a work or doing a deed, or by experiencing something or encountering someone, or by the attitude in any given set of circumstances. Sometimes we cannot change the circumstances, but we have to change ourselves. So that is the great, it needs great strength, right? So that the coping mechanism he argued in logotherapy. This therapy is already an established theory, but he made it very popular. Again, in the same book, he employed another technique, tragic optimism. What is tragic optimism? Even at the worst situation, we have to exhibit some optimistic thoughts. We have to believe that every situation has its own meaning. So we should try to find that meaning even at the deadliest situation. So that is the concept of tragic optimism. For example, in Mahabharata, Karna's role is the best example of tragic optimism. Even at the difficult situation, he didn't lose his values, right? So he is the best example of tragic optimism. In the words of Viktor Frankl, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Yes. So it is a kind of acceptance about the situation. Instead of blaming, we are just accepting the situation. We are trying to change ourselves according to the situation. So this is called tragic optimism. So another favorite therapy of mind as bibliotherapy. So all these time we have seen many theories that we are using from psychology. Here in this theory, psychologists are using bibliotherapy from literature. What is bibliotherapy? Bibliotherapy is a reading therapy. It is an adjunct therapy in psychology, where the psychologist prescribed some books to the people who needs treatment. It is believed that those books, the characters in the books, change the thought process of the people. So that is called bibliotherapy. Through reading, we are changing the mental illness of the people. So this is just an adjunct therapy, but still quite famous. For example, even before these terms are coined, bibliotherapy, long back we are using the same thing, because we are using Ramayana, Mahabharata, even Bhagavad Gita in order to teach moral values to the people, right? So this is called bibliotherapy. Especially even many psychologists used Bhagavad Gita in order to teach about resilience, mental will, strong will. So they use Bhagavad Gita in order to teach moral values to their patients. This term is coined by Samuel Crothers in 1916. But in Indian knowledge system, long back we are using the same therapy, right? Uh, Even in Gurukula, we are just teaching the moral values through these texts. The last uh, slide of this session is survivor's guilt. This is a psychological condition we use either in trauma studies or memory studies, because trauma and memory studies always have some relation to psychological theory. Because when people are enduring, whether it is personal or collective trauma, they have some psychological conditions that we have to address on time. Otherwise, it will turn into a mental illness. So especially when it is a collective trauma, especially the people who are in genocide society or wanton society, they just go through survivor's guilt. What is survivor's guilt? The survivors are not at all happy that they survived in the genocide, they survived in the war. So that is survive. They always have guilt, they have shame that they have survived where others perished. So throughout the life they have guilt, they have remorse, they have sense of unfairness that they escaped from that traumatic thing. So this is called survivor's guilt. So the best example is the novel A Passage of North. So in this, the protagonist has survivor guilt, where his entire community is going through genocide. He was just living safely in abroad. He has that kind of survivor guilt. Even after the genocide end, he couldn't come to peace with himself. So that is called survivor's guilt. Especially even in recent times, there is a book called Letters from Gaza. So if you're reading that book, this is from Penguin publication. If you're reading the book, we can clearly understand that people are not at all happy that they survived. They are very sad. They have guilty conscious that they survived, whereas others couldn't survive. So we can, throughout the genocide society, wanton society, we can understand this psychological condition from the people, because they are enduring some collective trauma. The last one is willed amnesia. So what is willed amnesia? It is quite opposite to memory. If memory is one side of the coin, another side of the coin is willed amnesia. So whereas in memory, the survivors try to couldn't escape their traumatic memories, right? Even they want to forget, they couldn't escape from their traumatic memory. Whereas in this willed amnesia, it is a kind of coping mechanism, but it is not always true. For example, if I am in genocide society, if I am in wanton society, I am the survivor, I am the victim. I don't want to remember anything traumatic. So I try to forget that. Uh, I try to fake that I'm no longer part of that society. Right? So that is called willed amnesia. It is not always true. It is not possible at all. But still, the survivor try to suppress their memory so that they can come to term with their real life. Otherwise, they cannot attain peace. They have to dwell in this traumatic memories. So that is called willed amnesia. So in this novel, Island of a Thousand Mirrors, we can clearly see how the protagonist, one of the protagonists, Saraswati, she tried to suppress her memory of genocide society. She settled in America. Whenever the people are asking her nationality, she doesn't want to mention her nationality again. This is the memory of her traumatic experience. So she doesn't want to tell her nationality. So whenever people are asking about her nationality, she always inform people that she is from Asia. Instead of the country, she mentions she is from Asia. So people are just trying to escape from the memory, but it is not always possible. That is called willed amnesia. It is a kind of coping mechanism, but I don't know, to the extent it won't work out. So that's all from my lecture. If you have any question, you can ask. If you have any questions, you can also post it in the chat box.
Participants, anybody have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask to ma'am, or you can write down in chat box also.